We have been debating all morning and will continue because the phone lines are jam-packed. The ICE shooting of the woman in Minnesota, she's from Colorado, 37-year-old Renee Nicole Good, lived in Minneapolis with her partner. She had a 6-year-old son. Was it a justified shooting? Does the police officer, was he warranted in getting hit by this fleeing car in using deadly force? Or was it an overreach? Was it murder of an innocent woman? Text messages from people that know are fascinating on this to me, Bill. We have one from George Brockler. Texted it, said, in an officer-involved shooting investigation, what matters is the officer's reasonable perception as to what the risk was, and was his response justified as a result of that perceived risk. What she truly intended or what her background was, unless either are known to the officer, are not relevant. That's one aspect. Here's Jay from Louisville, who's an attorney. He writes about Graham v. Connor, 1989 landmark Supreme Court case that established the objective reasonableness standard for evaluating excessive force claims against law enforcement under the Fourth Amendment. The ruling states that an officer's use of force must be judged from the perspective of a reasonable officer on the scene. So he and George would agree on that, okay? Considering the totality of the circumstances rather than with 20/20 hindsight, okay? Both there. Both agree that it's the reasonable officer on the scene, okay? But then there's a change here from Jay's perspective. Key factors in this analysis include the severity of the crime, whether the suspect poses an immediate threat, and if they are actively resisting or attempting to flee. So let's bring back Pete here. Here's the question I have for all of you guys. Was she actively resisting? Seems like in some case, yes. Was she attempting to flee? That also seems like a yes. So what do you do in this situation? Pete, Lake Monument, what's your analysis?
One of the things we have to also look at is people are looking at this officer who put himself in the front of that vehicle. He possibly, and quite possibly during training, put himself there to get a better shot and a better backdrop on this person and not put other people in jeopardy when and if he had to choose to use deadly force. It's extremely difficult to shoot someone from the side if there's other surrounding areas. And I'm not saying that's what he did, but that's a strong possibility. Whenever I've been in these type of critical situations on the street, you separate yourself from a better officer for a lot of tactical reasons. So tactics could have been something that came into play here. What my point is that she did not comply with officers' orders. Those were legal orders. She's addressed by the officer, and she does not comply. At that point, the officers have the articulability to sit back and say, my or someone else's safety is in jeopardy at that time. She is the one that decides to speed off. And from what I looked at that video, he is telling her to stop, and he's actually reaching into the car to try to turn her engine off, which happens all the time. Let's stop trying to subjectively shoehorn people's political ideology into this and just look at the facts. She put herself in this situation.
Pete, I appreciate the call. Bill, a response?
The officer also put himself in this situation as far as being in front of the vehicle. And I understand the tactical question about it, and thanks for the phone call, P, is I understand the tactical situation, but again, he placed himself in the wrong place tactically there in my mind because, as we talked about earlier, he was unable to judge the trajectory of the vehicle. Also, given that confrontation at the time, I understand she was disobeying orders, but how much of a risk of her leaving at that point in time, and again, I'm saying she's leaving because we see her back up and then she goes forward. Now, the tires do slip on the snow, but at that point when she's trying to accelerate, the tires are pointed to the right away from the vehicle. When she's driving towards the officer, she's curving to the right as he opens fire. She is not, as the Trump administration described it, aiming for or weaponizing her car towards the officers. So that has to be taken into consideration as well. What was the level of risk to everybody else involved? And the other portion is, what's the possible resolution? If she is trying to leave the scene and you're telling her earlier on that she was supposed to leave the scene, that's what we got from the Minnesota witness that we had earlier that we played the audio from, then you need to give her the opportunity to leave. Plus, you have her license plate, you have her car description, and very identifiable bumper stickers.
You have to give her the opportunity
yes,
to leave?
During a riot situation, and that's what the idea this was characterized as. This was some sort of a big, huge, giant protest. If you're telling someone to leave, you cannot then prevent them from having any avenues to leave. You have to give them the opportunity to leave.
I thought they were trying to detain her. I thought they were trying to turn off the car. So
no,
I'm telling her to leave?
Hang on a sec. Hold on. I'm going back to the audio you played earlier from the lady in Minnesota. She says directly what they wanted to do is have her get out of the area, have her leave. She was leaving at that time. I understand the determination
That's
they wanted to.
That's not the order that was given from the verbally in that situation.
But we are listening to what that witness said as far as what she was judging. The overall intent of the officers was to get that woman out of the area. And even if she is disobeying the order to stop the car at that point, it doesn't mean you get to shoot her, especially when you have her car description.
That's part
and
of the
cop stood in front of her. And again, and he didn't. And again, initially there were reported to be no injuries. He wasn't injured enough at the initial time for the report for him to even claim that he needed any medical attention. They did do medical attention later, but that's often done in many of these situations.
I'm not sure that's necessarily irrelevant. I just go back to what George Brockler wrote. In an officer-involved shooting, what matters is the officer's reasonable perception as to what was the risk, and was his response justified as a result, not how hard did the car hit him.
Well, that would be the risk. That would be the risk.
So you have to wait to get hit by the car before you can pull your gun?
No, trajectory, speed, place you can get hit on, can you move out of the way, stuff like that. That's all the risk. It's his risk assessment. That's what I'm talking about. His assessment of the risk at that time is faulty.
Well, no, you got hit. You got hit by the car. All right, let's go to news and comment. Blake Olson.
Blake Olson.
Blake Olson, news and comment.
Good morning. It is Thursday, 35 with some snowflakes north of the city. Expecting a high of 42 today. News sponsored by Pastor Camp Heating and Air Conditioning at 303-777-1234 to learn more about special savings opportunities on Lennox equipment. Our top story, protesters hitting the streets again in Minneapolis and across the country after an ICE agent shot and killed a woman on Wednesday who weaponized her car. So they're saying go home Nazis to ICE. The shooting happened in a neighborhood during an enforcement operation, as you've heard, when a federal agent opened fire on Renee Nicole Good, who's from Colorado Springs. After the shooting, Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem said the woman refused commands to get out of her car, out of her vehicle, and tried to harm the officer with the vehicle. Minnesota officials have pushed back, with Governor Tim Walz telling people not to believe Noem's account of what he said was part of a propaganda machine. Yeah, one of the most credible people in America right now, tampon Tim Walz. Here's some great advice from one of our legends on the Jeff and Billy Show, Barney.
Keep your mouth shut when it comes to the cops. Even if you think that you can whoop that cop's butt, it's irrelevant. Keep your mouth shut. Do what they tell you. May not be right, may suck, but by God, this has been brewing. This has been brewing for a long time.
Yes, it has, Barney. Thank you very much. A manhunt is underway for the person or persons who killed 2 people and injured 6 others outside a church in Utah.
I cannot confirm for sure at this time whether it's one shooter or multiple, but we are looking into that.
Police say a funeral was taking place at an LDS church in Salt Lake City Wednesday when an altercation broke out in the parking lot and shots were fired at a group of people. The U.S. is being withdrawn from dozens of international treaties by 47. In a memorandum, DJT said the U.S. has been pulled from 68 international organizations and treaties, including the UN Framework Convention on Climate Change. 47 said it was contrary to the interests of the U.S. 9 Republicans have sided with Democrats to set up a House vote on extending federal health care subsidies. The procedural vote passed a slim majority, setting up another vote today on passing a 3-year extension of the Non-Affordable Care Act subsidies that expired last week. The extension could get bipartisan support in the House, but is expected to fall short in the Senate. Here's what DJT said to Republicans. And my computer froze. I'm going to see if it plays real quick. And I don't think it's going to do it. Here we go.
They're owned by the insurance companies. You guys don't get money from the insurance companies. They do. They get a massive amount of money. It's their biggest donor. They're going to try and fight you, but they can't win the fight. If you explain it, the money goes directly to the people. That's going to be your issue. There are numerous things you can do, but you have to let no money for the insurance companies.
Let no.
Amen. All right, the Senate is set to vote today on a resolution that would block DJT from taking further action in Venezuela without congressional approval. Venezuelan officials say 100 people were actually killed in that raid that captured Nicolas Maduro. DJT seeking to recover millions from Georgia's election interference case. He fired a motion in court Wednesday to gain back more than $6 million in legal fees. College football playoffs continue tonight. Number 6, Ole Miss. Remember, they do not have their head coach because Lane Kiffin took that job in LSU, and they said, okay, you want that job? Get out of here. And their interim coach, head coach, is doing a great job, and they may be the country's favorite team right now. They take on number 10, Miami, this evening in the college football playoffs. Nuggets, a big win over the Celtics last night. They're finding ways to do it without Nikola Jokic. For now, he's out for about a month. 114-110 the final. NHL hockey tonight in Lodo. The Avs playing host to the Senators, and the Broncos continue preparation for the first round playoff game. Remember, no game this weekend. They'll take on the winner of the Jags and the Bills in about 11 days. 34 in Inglewood, 33 in Brighton, 35 in Denver. You're waking up with Jeff and Billy on a Thursday. Blake Olson, News Talk 710 KNUS.
Much colder and actually going to feel a little bit like winter for a change. Temperatures are going to be down just in the mid to upper 30s today, and that happens early. Lower 20s tonight and only low 30s for highs tomorrow. A storm system coming in, a little fragmented, will produce some light snow today and tonight into Friday morning. Denver could see an inch or two. Snow will be heavier in the foothills and mountains and to the south of Denver, where the storm system will track a little bit closer. Meteorologist Don Day in the 710 KNUS Weather Center.
She was an amazing human being. The headline from the Minnesota Star Tribune. Mother identifies the woman shot and killed by an ICE agent as Renee Nicole Good. She lived in Minneapolis with her partner, just blocks from where she was shot, originally from Colorado Springs. Was it a justified shooting? This has been the hot phone lines all day. Let's go to Chris in Lakewood. Good morning, Chris. You're on with Jeff and Bill.
Morning.
Hey, what's up, guys? Round 2. Hey, this is kind of long-winded, but I just want to say we can all agree that lethal force. Nobody likes lethal force. Nobody wants anybody to die. Okay, we all agree on that. Okay, but what we should also, I mean, this isn't that we don't have to ask AI, right, to realize that she drove her vehicle directly into an agent. And that created the situation. Like, what are you supposed to do in that situation? Very tough call, right? In a high tense situation, she was blocking the road, right? We don't wish death upon anybody, whether you're on the left or the right. I think that's important to say out loud. But it's also important to, note that the other one side is saying kill ICE officers. So how are they supposed to feel going into a situation like this, knowing that they don't have support of certain states, when they're just trying to remove people questionably, I will admit, questionably as a registered Republican, I will admit, but they're more or less trying to remove people who are not a benefit to our society.
Yeah, that's another aspect of this that I just find fascinating, and I appreciate the call, Chris. Thanks so much. Chris from Lakewood, his phone line will be open, 303-696-1971. I mean, you're now starting to get those Tiananmen Square moments that Mike Johnston was talking about early on, right? I'm going to send police, and we're going to interfere with ICE. Well, why? Like, are you so committed to illegal immigrants being in our communities that you feel like you have a duty to go put your car in front of ICE agents? Like, their crimes are so horrendous. I mean, and here's where I want to give some context. I believe that Planned Parenthood murders people on a daily basis, 70 of them, down in Aurora at their facilities. I think it's terrible what they're doing. Don't believe that I am justified to go try to drive my car to block Planned Parenthood operatives from going into the building, even though I believe there's murder happening there. And in this case, ICE agents are operating off of warrants given by judges to implement deportation orders. And they're trying to do their jobs, and yet not just these activists, which I understand are Looney Tunes to begin with, but these mayors, these governors that are whipping people up and essentially excusing, if not promoting, people to actively interfere with federal law enforcement operations. That is, you're setting people up to get hurt. And I do put blame on the mayor of Minneapolis and Governor Tim Walz for fomenting some of this. So let's go back to the phone lines. Jay in Highlands Ranch. Good morning, Jay. You're on with Jeff and Bill.
Hey, good morning, gentlemen. Thanks for taking my call. I've been in law enforcement about 14 years in the Denver area. So that text from the attorney with the Graham v. Connor is kind of hits the nail on the head. That's kind of what this will be judged off of. That's kind of the foundation of the use of deadly force has been since the late 80s. And when looking at if a vehicle can be used as a deadly weapon, it can be. Is it always classified as that? Obviously not. In this situation, was she intending to use it as a deadly weapon? It's kind of an unknown. I think if she was, she may have angled the vehicle a little differently. But as a cop and as a training officer, I will always tell everyone I train, never stand in front or behind an occupied car. Unless you have a vehicle there in between, that's the worst place to stand. There's nothing, lines of fire doesn't matter. Don't ever put yourself in that position. It's kind of a legal term that's starting to get thrown out. It's officer-induced jeopardy, which I think he kind of placed himself in that. And another thing, there's always a base about shooting at a moving vehicle. Some instances, yes, absolutely a good idea, but you also have to consider once that person is incapacitated behind the wheel of a moving car, it's now a missile. Who knows where it's going to go? It's a situation where I think it will be rule justified because the vehicle did strike him whether he was injured or not. However, it may be a situation where just because you can and you're justified, maybe you should. And that's kind of my 2 cents.
I mean, Jay, I think that's probably the most sober analysis so far.
Yeah, much better than my analysis.
And it's hard to tell with the video angles, but I did see an extended one where it did kind of look like there may have been additional ICE agents in the direction she was going farther down the street that were blocking off the road, so that could have been another consideration, but I can't say that for sure if they were there or if they had arrived after it happened. So if that agent thought she was driving recklessly and maybe drive towards them, that could have been another part of it, but I couldn't say for sure if there were agents on that side of it. It's one of those things. But in the baseline that I'm using this for training, don't ever stand or in front of or behind a car. Whether you're a cop or a citizen, it's just the worst place to be.
Oh, thanks, Jay.
Appreciate
that,
the
man.
analysis and
That's
the
awesome.
life experience.
That's pretty cool.
And teaching that he brings in. That's why our listeners are the best.
Yeah, they are.
Jay's line is open, 303-696-1971. Text us on the Dan Caplis Law text line at 720-819-5115. Let's talk the law offices of Dan Caplis. Dan suggests you should choose a lawyer who shares your values because who you choose to represent you in an injury case says a lot about you to everyone involved in the case. Dan Caplis, the son of a police officer and a former seminarian who's dedicated the last 40 years of his life to helping people who've been hurt in serious motor vehicle crashes. Dan is believed to be the only lawyer in Colorado history to win 5 straight multi-million-dollar verdicts in Colorado crash cases. Dan is also believed to have won the largest truck crash verdict in Colorado state history. Dan Caplis Law is the official law firm partner of the Denver Nuggets and the Colorado Avalanche. Dan Caplis Law is a serious firm for serious cases. Dan accepts righteous injury cases on a percentage fee basis so that he can represent good people from all walks of life without regard to ability to pay. So if you need Dan's help, give him a call. Here's the phone number, 303-770-5551. 303-770-5551, or hit dancaplisLaw.com. That's Dan, CAPLIS Law.com. All right, Frank, you'll be up next. You're listening to The Jeff and Bill Show.
This is Denver's Talk Leader, News Talk 710, KNUS.
Welcome back to the Jeff and Bill Show. Debate hot over the ICE shooting that took place in Minnesota. Text messages flying in. This is one of the hottest days we've ever had on this. 8714. Looks like white privilege doesn't exist. You screw around with the cops, you get shot. Just comply. It's not that difficult. 6372. How did this girl know where ICE personnel were headed? There's got to be some responsibility here. Well, you see that in Colorado too. There's like this little network of alerters, and so once ICE leaves a facility, they follow around. I've seen they'll follow around, and then even when ICE goes into like an apartment complex, they stand out there with bullhorns and say, "Don't open the door to ICE." So they're actively interfering. So let's see. 5600 on January 6th, a communist killed a patriot. Yesterday, a communist tried to kill a patriot, and that patriot defended himself. Billy, you are on the wrong side of everything.
Yeah, I love how we've turned patriot into a code name like Goodfellas. Like it's some sort of mob code name. That we've decided that if you believe something politically, then you're obviously a patriot. And if I disagree with your politics, you're obviously a communist. We are going to determine our truth based on our politics. It's a running theme here.
Number one rule for discharging from Chest Rockwell, know what's behind the target. There were many homes and people surrounding them. This could have seen a lot more casualties. Julian Denver, instead of Monday morning quarterbacking, I'm going to wait until all the facts from multiple investigations come to light. However, I stand by my original post. All of this could be avoided if the state and city's leaders complied with legal federal law instead of being sanctuary cities and states. All right, let's go to the phone lines. Frank in Evergreen. Good morning, Frank. You're on with Jeff and Bill.
Hey, good morning. Speaking of Patriot, I don't know. I remember the movie The Patriot, but recall when, I forget the star's name in that, but recall when he was against the Revolutionary War, and when his own son got killed, that's when he became a patriot, and that's when he was for the Revolutionary War. And I think that speaks to a lot of people. You know, I'm curious, you know, Billy's opinion about this cop. I mean, he's already got him, you know, blued and tattooed. I'm curious if that cop was Billy's dad or son or brother, how he would feel about it. The thing is, also, you know, I have hope because in Minnesota, the Star Tribune, of course, is a left-wing nutjob paper. It's always been that way. And now there's a paper called the Alpha News, which is actually telling the true story, not the BS story. So I would suggest that people look at the Alpha News and see their reporting on it and see the truth. You know, Jeff, I have a question for you on this. You know, we finally have a president who's teaching our Republicans how to fight. You know, it's been 50 years. They haven't known how to fight. Now they know how to. They're learning how to fight. My question is, how do we fight these absurd opinions that we hear coming out of the left-wing nut jobs about the cop being in front of the car? Well, he didn't place himself in front of the car. He got, as a result of the chaos, he ended up in front of the car. Now
wait, hang on. I got to stop you there, Frank.
Everything?
Frank, I have to stop you there. He wandered around in front of the car. The car was stopped. The officers were approaching on the left-hand side. He can be seen on the video standing behind the car. He approaches and goes around the right side of the car and stands in front of the vehicle. Not during some sort of chaos, not in some sort of quandary of something going around there. He took the decision to place himself in front of the vehicle.
Now, can I have a retort without you hanging up on me, Billy?
Yeah, sure.
Okay. So here's the thing. I said that it was all unfolding as part of the chaos. And he was moving around to support his fellow officers. And as part of the chaos, that's when the car started moving. He had no view of her tires. The car started moving, and he did get hit. So simple fact is that he got hit. He could have been a lot worse. And again, a question for you, Billy. If that was your father, son, or brother, what would you think? Would you still think the same thing?
Who was my father, son, brother? Who? Which person are we talking about?
The cop who killed the.
Yeah, I would still think that my father, son, brother made a very bad decision based on where they placed themselves in front of a vehicle. As two law officers have defined for us this morning, it's a dangerous instrument. And in that situation, it seems like a very poor choice to place yourself in front of that vehicle, and especially at an angle in which you can't determine the trajectory of the vehicle. Those are mistakes. Yes, I would have the same opinion if it was someone in my family.
Okay, well, that's good to know. It's taken you many, many minutes to state this. This whole thing unfolded in a matter of nanoseconds, and the decisions were all made in a matter of nanoseconds.
Yes.
So what's the cop supposed to do? Sit there and say, let me think. Is she going to hit me
Frank,
or not?
here's the thing.
No,
Frank,
first of all, we know she's a crazy woman.
Frank, hang on. No, we don't know that she's a crazy woman. We don't know that.
We do know she's a crazy woman.
No, we don't. How do we know what sort of mental diagnoses does she have at that time? How can you assert?
She's a crazy woman.
But
they were trying to get her to stop. They were trying to get. I have many cops in my family, and I'll tell you right now that the cops are not perfect by any stretch, because none of us are perfect. But the thing is, when you are stopped by a cop, what you do is you put your hands on the steering wheel, roll down the window so he can see what you're doing. He or she can see what you're doing, and you do what they tell you to do.
And Frank, if they don't, and if that person doesn't, do the cops get to shoot them?
Obviously not.
Oh, well, that's what happened here.
In this case,
but Frank, that's what happened here.
He was being targeted by a vehicle. In this case,
wasn't.
He actually got hit by the vehicle.
No, he wasn't targeted.
He actually got hit by the vehicle.
No, Frank, he made himself a
and
target.
So he didn't know that he didn't have any idea where the front tire was pointed.
No, that's his mistake. Frank, that's his mistake based on where he placed himself that he couldn't see them. That's his mistake. And he placed himself in front of the vehicle. She didn't target him. He placed himself in front of the vehicle. That's the important thing. That's a lapse in judgment.
Can I ask Jeff a question, please, Billy?
Yeah, go ahead.
Sure.
Okay, Jeff, here's my question. Clearly Billy and I disagree. And the people who think the way Billy does have been in my life since the Vietnam War. I lived through the Vietnam War protests, and there are all these crazy people during that time, and it's always been Democrats, and they're always find some crazy thing to protest, and they think they don't have to obey the law. And my question is, I just said that Trump is teaching Republicans how to fight, thankfully, finally. And, so the question is, how do we silence, and I'm not saying no one should be silenced because we all have the right to free speech. How do we overcome this absurd arguments that Billy is putting forth here?
Well, I mean, I'm going to go back to what Charlie Kirk said. You dialogue, you discuss. That's why this show is so important. You could think that Billy's arguments are absurd. There's plenty of text messengers that think my arguments are absurd. But bad things happen when people stop talking, and I think that's why I appreciate we had Tricia Calaverse on the show yesterday. But to your point about Trump teaching Republicans to fight back, I think that's 100% accurate. That's why I think a lot of Republicans probably would have thrown this ICE agent under the bus and gone out there and tried to engage these protesters in this issue by handing up this ICE officer as a sacrifice on the altar of political correctness, and Trump standing by his ICE officers as he should. So, Frank, I appreciate the call. Thanks so much. We've got to run here. We've got full phone lines. Feel free to jump in if you'd like, 303-696-1971. Look, if you listen to me for any amount of time, you know I care deeply about freedom, responsibility, and supporting local businesses that have stood the test of time. That's why I want to tell you about the Gun Room. The Gun Room has been Denver's oldest firearms dealer since 1982. When you walk in, you feel it. Real wood, real craftsmanship. A shop that actually looks like a gun store. Less plastic, more tradition. They buy, sell, and consign any and all firearms from antique and vintage to hunting and tactical. And they do something those big box stores never will. They work closely with families who've lost a loved one and need help handling a gun collection with care and respect. They'll offer a fair price for you. Inventory changes daily with over 1,000 firearms in stock. So if you're thinking about buying, especially with new restrictive laws coming, You should act now. Support local, support family-owned, support freedom. Visit denvergunroom.com or call 303-237-1300. That's denvergunroom.com, 303-237-1300. That's The Gun Room, a Colorado original. Wayne is great at The Gun Room. All right, let's go to Ryan.
Yeah.
Roxborough. Good morning, Ryan. You're on with Jeff and Bill.
Morning.
Hey, how you guys doing? I just want to point out that I think some of the right questions aren't being asked here, right? So, first of all, what is ICE doing in Minnesota? Well, they have large numbers in Minnesota right now due to probably what is the largest fraud allegations in the country's history, which could equal up to maybe more than $1 billion, maybe up to $9 billion, maybe more, right? So that is why they are there right now, okay? First and foremost, in large numbers. And then also, why was Renee Nicole Good stalking ICE? And, where is this state of mind being perpetuated from the left? And why do they feel emboldened to do something like that? It's my understanding that ICE officers were actually trying to dig out one of their own vehicles out of the snow, and she just came barreling in with her SUV, blocked the road, tried to make it more difficult. The situation's tense. We all know that ICE agents are targeted all over the country and that many on the left want ICE agents dead. And so they command her to get out of the car. If you really actually look at the video, Billy, the vehicle starts moving as the wheels are still turned into that officer. Now, she quickly turns the wheel. Nonetheless, those wheels are still turning as she's accelerating into that cop. So, not obeying police commands.
Which defines
Let me just finish
trajectory.
real fast.
Which, Ryan, that would define the trajectory of the vehicle, meaning she's going away from the officers.
No. She was the vehicle. You got to go back and look at the video, Billy.
Dude, I did.
The vehicle starts moving forward, and the wheels are still turned in the direction of that.
What did she do?
officer.
What did she do prior to the car moving forward?
She
The car
didn't
went
obey
backwards. No, the
police
car
commands.
the car went backwards. And what direction were the wheels in the front?
Doesn't matter.
No,
Doesn't
Ryan, this is important. Let's walk through this. She reversed. At that time, what direction were her front wheels pointing? The answer is they were going to the left, which means that her rear end swings to the left behind her, changing the front end angle of the car away from perpendicular to going away from the officer's vehicles. Then when she accelerates, as most people do, she then turns the wheel over to the right. Her actions show she's trying to leave the area.
No. Her wheel was still turned. Her tires were still turned in the direction of the cop. Go back and watch the video as she starts accelerating. And yes, she turned quickly. Still, nonetheless, let me just point out a few
if she
things
wanted to
here.
hit them, sir, if she wanted to hit them, she would continue to have those tires face that same way.
She did bump them if you look at the right
that's not what I
videos.
said, Ryan. That's not what I said. If she intended to hit them with the vehicle, she would continue to aim towards them. She didn't.
Let me just point something else out because I don't want to argue over how wheels are turned here. I would just say that not obeying police commands can result in accidents happening, right? So the same cop that shot her was also dragged by another bad perpetuator or whatever earlier in the year, dragged, I think, quite a few feet by a vehicle. The guy's probably on edge. So if you want to come barreling in as they're trying to dig out another ICE officer, and then you think you're gonna barrel in and not obey police commands, and your engine's revving up and crazy stuff is happening all around you in the fog of war. Like you think that's okay?
That description is far out of bounds of what we saw. She didn't come barreling in. We didn't see any of that. We didn't come in her. We didn't see her being overly aggressive or anything. The description that you paint of that, the description that you paint of that situation.
Was she stalking ICE?
I don't know. I don't have that information. But guess what? Hang on, Ryan. Wait. Hang on, Ryan. Even if she was following them that day and disrupting what was going on, that's not a justification for shooting her. We're not saying we get to now shoot the people that are protesting and disrupting these things, are we? That's not where we're going as a
Of
country.
course not. But you hit the ICE officer with your car.
No,
yeah, you're going to get shot.
Ryan was asking, was she stalking him? As if because she
Of
was
course
there
she
all
was.
day. I know, but the idea being, because she was there all day, that then justifies
It's
deadly
part
force.
of the equation, though.
Yes, that's the idea, that you're using it in the equation to justify deadly force. That does not justify deadly force. It just doesn't.
Go ahead,
Billy,
Ryan. Last
let
word.
me let me just ask one last thing here. If you're an ICE officer in the state of Minnesota right now, and you know things are highly intense, and you see a deranged woman in her SUV pull up and try to prevent you from digging out your fellow officer's vehicle in the middle of the road, doesn't obey ICE police commands, what if you're in that position, Billy? What are you going to think?
Well, here, Ryan, the description.
Just let her
wait,
go.
the
Just let her
description.
drive how
I understand
she
your
wants.
question. I understand your question, but your description of the situation is completely and totally wrong. We don't have them on the video. Hang on, we don't have them on the video digging out the front car. We don't have her coming up and showing
How
up with her car.
convenient.
Hang on, that would be. You're the one that used that as a descriptor. So did the Trump administration. We have yet to see any information about any cars being dug out of the snow at that time. And what we can see in the video of the shooting is the lead car, the silver pickup where the ICE agents get out of, is not stuck in the snow, is not being dug out of the snow. And so if she pulls up in front of that vehicle, she is not preventing any officers from digging out any vehicle or preventing any vehicle from being dug out of the snow. So that entire narrative you presented is incorrect.
This is a political loser from the left. And the last thing I got to just get in real quick, I cannot believe that Tim Walz is threatening the deployment of the National Guard of Minnesota against federal troops. They want a civil war because there's $9 billion in fraud in Minnesota right now, and they're all going to jail.
My
Ryan,
read of the deployment of National Guard was to address rioting, but I could be wrong. All right,
Yeah.
Ryan,
Thanks, man.
thanks for the call. That's Ryan from Roxborough. His phone line's open if you want to join the conversation, 303-696-1971. Text us on the Dan Caplis Law text line at 720-819-5115. Let's talk advanced hair restoration. How about a simple New Year's resolution, one that even I could achieve? Reverse the clock on hair loss with Advanced Hair's simple one-day FUE treatment. You'll feel more confident and more youthful when you witness your own natural hair growing into those places that have been balding or thinning for years. From Advanced Hair's breakthrough technology to their highly experienced team, there's no one I trust more in hair restoration. Their simple FUE treatment begins to regrow your own natural hair the very next day, and your new hair is backed by the Advanced Hair Guarantee. Simply put, Advanced Hair's exceptional standard of care makes your comfort and your results their top priority. Celebrate the new year with a fuller head of hair and get a free consultation, $250 off and 250 free hair grafts. Call 720-459-HAIR, 720-459-HAIR. Discover what meeting your resolution could look like with the before and after pictures at advancedhair.com. We'll continue with your phone calls and texts. You're listening to The Jeff and Bill Show.
This is Denver's Talk Leader, News Talk 710, KNUS.
All right. Yeah, priming you. Welcome back to the Jeff and Bill Show. This is one of the hottest shows we've ever had. Was the ICE shooting in Minnesota justified? Was it a woman that was interfering with legal, lawful law enforcement operations and hit a cop, hit an ICE agent, and the ICE agent, seeking to protect himself and his fellow brothers and sisters behind the badge, while you may not agree with it, doesn't deserve to get prosecuted, doesn't deserve to get thrown in jail for what he did? Or was this the murder of an innocent woman? She was trying to flee. They told her to get out of there. And he shot 3 times, twice into the side window. And he deserves to get prosecuted. We've had callers on texts on both sides of this. Let's go to the phone lines. David in California. Good morning, David. You're on with Jeff and Bill.
Oh, yeah, morning. Yeah, it's too bad that Fox News stirred this up the way they did. There are a number of videos. Fox News played one without audio. The woman was told to get out of there, get out of there. And Fox News has dead silence when that happens, right? So she's following instructions, and you can see the calmness of the guy getting out on the passenger side, but the guy in the driver's seat is real eager. Now, I used to live in Colorado. I lived in Junction, and for a short time I lived in Denver. This was in 1990. There was a famous incident of a guy, a burglar, who was trying to break into a warehouse in downtown Denver, and somebody had set up a booby trap in there and blew his brains out as he climbed in the window. And it turned out that guy was a Nazi, and he was getting a bounty for everybody he could inculcate into his gang. And I suspect that what this ICE situation is that Trump is giving bounties to these creeps that are doing killings. And in the case of Michael McComb is the name of the burglar in Denver. He was a Nazi, and he.
So, David, help me
friend.
understand. You think that Donald Trump is giving ICE agents bounties to kill American citizens?
Absolutely. Yeah.
And what
absolutely.
evidence do you have of this?
Well, we're going to find out. Let's say,
so it's just
let's
a
say
theory.
these previous callers today, they're talking about, well, look at the cameras, Well, let's see the cameras, the body cameras of these cops, these ICE agents. Why do any of them have body cameras on them? Any of them?
I don't know. I think that is kind of an issue as far as why we wouldn't have or do we have access to body cameras, and that'll come out, David. But the question is that I've got is if we believe, and now I'm just saying we is the royal we being the show, if we believe that Donald Trump is setting bounties and giving ICE agents incentives to either hurt or kill American citizens, why haven't we seen more of them? Why would this be the first?
Well, he's given bounty. Who's the bomber in D.C. on January 6th?
Yeah, but we've been doing ICE stuff for a while. But David, we've been doing this.
To the
I know,
pipe bomber?
but hang on, we've been doing this for a while, David. We've been doing these ICE enforcement actions for a while, and especially going up to somewhere like Portland, or when they were involved in protecting the facility in L.A. There are times there in which, if there was a bounty or a financial incentive for me to go kinetic on the protesters, it's right there in front of me. Especially in Portland, but we don't see that. That's the problem I have is if what you were saying is true, I feel we would have seen a lot more physical attacks, if not killings, by ICE because of the financial incentive. If it is such a strong incentive for this to occur, we should see more, and we're not.
Oh, well, like I say, these guys are masked. Have they identified the guy, the shooter yet?
Yes.
I mean, they've got a video of him, but have they actually got an ID on him? Have they pressed charges on him?
Well, I know.
I think they're doing an investigation.
Yeah, it's an investigation.
David,
Yeah.
I think they wear masks because people like you are saying they're Nazis getting bounties by Trump to kill people.
I appreciate the phone call, David, and we don't know the identity of him yet, but there is an investigation that happens post every shooting. In every law enforcement agency, the officer is taken off of duty, given a desk job, or just told to go home for a while, and then they do a full investigation internally, and then possibly leading to criminal charges if needed. That's it. So they're going through the process, and I don't think we should know the name of the ICE officer at this point. I don't think that helps the narrative in any way, shape, or form for us to be able to identify who that ICE officer is, personally.
3207 saying she wasn't told to get out of there. She was told to get out of the car. Interesting. All right, so let's go to Jacqueline, Nebraska. Good morning, Jacqueline. You're on with Jeff and Bill.
Good morning, guys. I'll be brief. I haven't seen this video, but I've been listening to everybody this morning. My daughter called me this morning, and she says, Mom, what was that woman doing there in a dangerous situation like that when she has a child at home? I didn't even know that until I was listening on the radio station. They don't display any real common sense anymore. And on the left, these people think that their First Amendment rights lets them do pretty much whatever the hell they want to do. She went down there into a volatile area where there is potential violence, and it didn't seem to bother her because she was in a big car. Well, that didn't matter now, did it? Her time would have been better spent. She'd have been home with her child. That's where that woman belonged. Now, I'm not against exercising your First Amendment rights, but these people have no idea what that means. They stretch that until they think they can do whatever they want. She should have been home. She shouldn't have been down there. Now, I'm not seeing the video, and I'm not going to watch it. But I'm going to tell you, you have to have a little bit of common sense when you're 37 years old, that if you've got a child at home, if you've got a job, if you've got responsibilities, you have to put your priorities first. You don't go down and you don't riot or whatever. You don't do that kind of stuff when you have priorities and obligations as
Jacqueline,
an adult.
and believe me, I go to a lot of protests. Even on my side, I agree with you. You shouldn't be putting your car interfering with federal law enforcement operations. All right, Jacqueline, I appreciate it.
Thanks,
Let's go
Jacqueline.
to Gary in Aurora. Good morning, Gary. You're on with Jeff and Bill.
Morning.
Hey, fellas. My name is Gary. I think I have a unique perspective on this. This is a very difficult thing to discuss.
Okay, now, Gary, we've got about a minute, so I need you to be quick on it. I'm sorry.
I have been in law enforcement. I've been in security for the better part of 30 years. I have twice in my career in life, have had people try to kill me using their vehicle as a weapon. I want to put you in my head what went through my mind.
All right,
when
Gary,
this
hold on. We'll take you right at the top of the hour very quickly. Stick around. We're just up against the break. I do want to hear your perspective on this. And we got Sean Pond coming up next hour as well. You're listening to the Jeff and Bill Show.
This is 710 KNUS.